Hey guys, I'm Jim. I edit photos. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm in On1 Photo Raw 2021 and I'm playing around with a portrait, and that's not something I say a lot at the beginning of videos simply because I don't really take a lot of portraits, and I don't do a lot of videos around them, but I want to sort of work some more of those into the flow here simply because it's interesting to me. I know a lot of people are interested in portrait editing, and for me it's frankly it's a learning experience. I don't really take them a lot. I mean, I understand how to take them, I guess, to a certain degree. I'm certainly not particularly good at it, but I want to get better. So should I ever have an opportunity, hey, I'll go take some portraits. But in the meantime, while we're all sitting at home and that sort of thing, I'm editing portraits that I'm downloading from Unsplash. Here's a photo by a photographer named Christopher Campbell. I'll put a link to his photo down below on Unsplash, but I think it's a great portrait. This young lady, I think the scene is just right. And what I wanted to do is actually just kind of do something kind of creative and kind of different. A lot of portrait editing, of course, is just minor things to kind of enhance the natural light and the natural look of the person. I tend to be kind of on the creative side. I like to go do things that are a little bit different, a little bit creative, a little bit more interesting to me. And so that's kind of what I'm exploring in this video today. So I'm going to start here on the Develop tab. I'm going to do a little bit of contrast. And so I'm going to bump that up to, like 40, 42, something like that. Highlights are coming down a bit, maybe about like a negative 40. And midtones are going up a little bit, like maybe a 13 or something like that. So, not a whole lot of change, to be honest, if you look at the before and after, pretty simple stuff. But one of the great things about On1 is that they have Portrait AI as a module that's built into the product. So it's on this tab over here. And if you click on this, you can see the mask. And if you click View, you can see that it's automatically basically detected her face, which I think is pretty cool. And so I'm going to hide that because I'm not really getting into the masking here. I think that's fine in terms of how it looks. So what I want to do is just kind of go in, make some portrait adjustments, and then kind of go do some of the creative things that I was talking about. So I'm going to start with skin retouching. I'm just going to go to 100. It just smooths it out a whole lot. Just something I kind of like to do here when I'm having fun. I'm going to do face brightness. I'm going to go a little bit brighter there, like maybe a 15 or 14. I'm going to slim her face a tiny bit. Let's be honest. She's a nice looking young lady. She doesn't really need all this stuff. So this is not any kind of commentary on what you should do or what any particular model in your photo needs. This is just a personal preference for something I'm trying to do with my creative efforts in this photo. So I'm going to increase the left eye size a little bit, and I'm actually going to increase the right eye size quite a bit. It felt like they were a little bit imbalanced. I don't know, like maybe eyes aren't always open to the same degree and that sort of thing. And that's what's great about the eye tools here. Also, if you click on this little icon and then hover over here, you can see that you can adjust where the eyes are, or what it's considering the eyes. So that's pretty neat how that's built into the product. I did a video about Portrait AI in On1 a while back if you want to check that out. But we've got the eyes selected. It did a great job of selecting them automatically. So I'm going to increase the brightness a little bit. I'm going to pull up the whitening as well. I'm going to add some detail. This is kind of popping, kind of like clarity. It just gives a nice little kick to those eyes, makes them a little bit sharper. And I'm going to give a little bit of brow enhance as well. So maybe, high 20s. And then you've got the mouth section. There is no teeth whitening. Her mouth is closed. You've got the same kind of thing. If you click on here, you got a mouth tool and you can make adjustments to, what it's considering the mouth. That's close enough for me. So I'm not really going to mess with that. I am going to give a little bit of vibrance to the lips. I'm going to leave brightness alone, and then I'm going to pull the hue down a little bit, something about like that. So if I turn off Portrait AI, there's the before, and there's the current state. Pretty minor changes, but it kind of fits in with what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is now going to the Effects tab, and this is where I start kind of having some of the creative fun that I like to have in On1. Okay, I'm going to start by adding a filter, and the first filter I'm going to add is Replace Color, and this is basically me wanting to change the color of her shirt, this is such a cool filter. So you click on the little eyedropper here on Target Color. I'm going to pick that blue, and you can see it has a default color. I'm going to change this hue to about an 8. I'm going to pull the saturation down to maybe around 30. But I'm going to increase brightness quite a bit to like maybe 60, 65, something like that. So you can see she's basically got a red shirt. The challenge, of course, is she's got a bunch of other stuff that's red as well because it selected that same color. I picked it in the shirt, but that same color shows up elsewhere in the photo. So we've got to go mask that out, which is not hard to do at all. I'm going to use the AI Quick Brush for this. So you just come in, and I'm in drop mode. So I'm going to make my mouse kind of bigger, and I'm just going to highlight all this stuff here. in red, which is basically drop, which means, hey, I don't want that color adjustment to show up there. And then in keep, I'm going to go like that, and I'm going to decrease the size of my mouse, and I'm now going to paint keep all over her shirt just so that it knows. And then once you're done, you just hit apply, and there you go. You can see red is drop and green is keep. So it's going to keep that color change where it's green, which is her shirt. So I'm done. I'm happy with that. It did a perfect job of picking that out. And you can see now that the red has been, if I can turn that off, there you go, blue shirt and now red shirt, and all the other stuff that was red, some of the stuff in the background, blah, 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 no longer red. That's what's so great about that AI quick mask. I love it. I did a video about that as well. Anyway, we're going to go on. And so I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks good. My next thing here is to add a texture. I enjoy using textures. I've been playing with them quite a bit, and there's quite a few built into On1, which I think is awesome. This is not the one I'm going to use. I'm going to click on more, and I'm going to get this red door. I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to change the blend mode to subtle, which I like quite a bit. And that's a nice thing I like about On1 is not only are all these different textures built into the tool, but you also have the ability to adjust blend modes. And so on all these different filters, you can change the blend mode, which is helpful. So in this case, though, I do not want the texture applying to her face, right? I smoothed the skin earlier. She's got obviously a nice face. I want to go in there and make that adjustment. So I'm going to once again get AI Quick Mask. And for keep, I'm going to increase the size of my mouse a little bit. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to keep the texture in all these kind of areas. So I just like to outline the area. I'm going to go above her head, come down around here. You don't have to be super precise with the tool, but I just try to give it as much information as possible and shrink my mouse a little bit. And for drop, I don't really want the texture in her hair. I definitely don't want it on her face. So I'm going to hit apply and see how that looks. Give it a second to render the mask. And there you go. Now it's going to keep the texture where it's green, which is basically the background. It's going to drop it from her face and her shirt and that sort of thing. That's perfect. So once again, I'm going to say done. Again, the beauty and the power of AI Quick Mask. I love it. Now, one of the things I would do, I would click on View Mask so you can see where the mask is applying and not applying. Remember, black conceals and white reveals. So black is concealing the mask, or I should say concealing that texture, meaning no texture is going to be applied where it's black and texture is applied where it's white. But one of the things I like to do is come in and just adjust some of these things like the feathering. So instead of having that hard edge, the feathering is going to soften that edge to kind of blend together that. And I think that's something you might want to do. And then you can always drop the density as well and just see how that looks on your photo. So I think a little bit lower density and definitely an increase in feathering. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit higher on feathering. I think something like that looks pretty good. So I think I'm happy with that. The only other thing I'm going to do is come up here to the filter opacity, and I'm going to pull that down a little bit, which is basically just going to decrease the intensity of that texture on the photo. So if you look at the before and after, there it is before, and there it is after. Now you've got a bunch of other controls here in the texture tool, and if you'd like to see more on textures, let me know. I've got a couple other photos I've been playing with. They're so much fun, but you can shift the hue as well, so you can just essentially change that texture color in the background. In fact, I kind of like it a little bit like that. You can always double click these to set them back to normal, but you can see there it's a little bit warmer, and if I come over here, I'm shifting the hue and making it a little bit cooler. I actually kind of like that. I think I'm going to go with that for now. But keep in mind that you can always go back and make adjustments. I could go back to replace color and change her shirt color if I wanted to. Flexible, powerful, that's one of the great things about it. But now I'm going to do something else. Once again, I'm going to get replace color. And this time I'm going to change the color of her hair slightly, not entirely. So the target color is this one here. I don't want it to be red. So I'm going to pull this over here to kind of the blue. And I think maybe something about like that. I'm going to pull the saturation down. And of course, I need to mask that in. So this is where I would use the perfect brush. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click invert. And then I've got the perfect brush selected here. So I'm going to paint in. You can see I'm in paint in mode. And I just want to paint that blue in some of these areas. So I'm just coming over here. And it's kind of streaky. You can go back over it and over it as you want to. And I recommend taking your time. I'm doing it kind of fast because it's a video. But I recommend taking your time and getting it right and kind of refining that. But the perfect brush, I think, does a great job along those edges. You can always come over here and click on View to check out your mask. And you can see, I mean, it's really picked up her hair quite nice. I think it's done a really good job. I'm going to turn that view off, and I think I may feather the mask a little bit just in case for the edges, maybe reduce the density a little bit. And I think I'm done with the masking component. I may now come play with the color a little bit. I actually think going here a little bit to the right is a little bit better color for that. And I think I'll bring the saturation down just a tiny bit and bring the brightness up. And now I think I'm going to bring saturation down a little bit more. I'm not trying to completely overhaul and change her hair. I'm just kind of having some creative fun, to be honest. And there's nothing wrong with her hair color. I like it quite a bit. I think it looks great here. But there's the current color, and that's the replaced color. So you don't have to like this. That's okay. I like the idea. I don't know if I love the actual result here, but take time, experiment, have fun. More than anything, I wanted to show you that you can do these kind of things in On1. It's quick, it's easy, it's powerful, and it can give you some nice, fun, kind of interesting and creative outputs. Okay, so I'm finished with that. One of the things I kind of don't like is that to me it's a little bit too bright in the background. So this is where I would use a local adjustment, and it defaults to like a -1 exposure here. I'm going to come in with a gradient mask, linear top. I'm going to drop that there, and I just want to spin that a little bit. I'm going to increase the size of the gradient zone, so kind of like the feathering, maybe something about like that. And then I'm going to change the amount of reduction in exposure. I don't want to really darken it. I just want to darken it a little bit. And so I've done that. I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. So once again, a linear top, I think that's fine. I'll put that in there. And I'm going to do something kind of similar to what I did on the other side. Increase that gradient, kind of that feathering. And then come over here, adjust the exposure so it's not so dark. Mostly I'm just kind of reducing some of the intensity of the light in the background. So it's pretty minor, but let me go back to this one. I'm going to decrease that darkness a little bit. And then you could do the same thing like on the bottom if you wanted to. Again, these are not big moves, just a slight darkening. If I turn them off, you can see it's slightly brighter on both sides. And if I turn them back on, you can see it's now slightly darker on both sides. Very minor, but again, local adjustments, lots of power, lots of control, and it gives you the ability to kind of it does give you the ability to customize that final look of your image. And the last thing I want to do here is go back to effects, and I'm going to get a vignette. I tend to do a vignette pretty much the very last thing when I'm editing a photo, and that's just my preference. So I'm going to take brightness down pretty low. I'm going to take the size down just a little bit, maybe something like that. Feathering is going to go to 100, and roundness is going to decrease quite a bit, something about like that. So actually, I think that's a little too much of a vignette. So let's see, maybe something about like that. Remember, I already darkened the edges with the local adjustment just a moment ago. So the vignette for me is just a minor kind of final touch, but if I turn that off, you can just see minor darkening to the edges. There it is before, and there it is after. Let me show you the entire photo. I mean, we've made quite a few changes. This is all just fun experimentation, just kind of having a good time with it. But that's how it started. Perfectly fine photo. Again, not picking on either the photographer or the model. It's a great photo. But there it is before, and with some creative fun and some just different kind of stuff, I turned it into that. If I do the sliding scale, you can kind of see some of the changes that we did. Smoothed out the skin a little bit, added a different textured background, changed the color of her shirt, changed the color of her hair, darkened the background, did a lot of different things. It's all, honestly, it's just for fun. And that's what I like about On1. It kind of encourages me to experiment and have fun and just do different things. And if nothing else, it just makes me better at using the tool by doing so. So hope it gives you some ideas. Again, you may or may not like this result or this kind of portrait edit. Totally fine. Doesn't bother me if you don't like it. I like the result to a certain extent. I don't love it. I think I would play with it some more, but more than anything, just wanted to show off some of the tools, some of the cool stuff you can do. That's how I did it in this one, my friends. Hope it gives you some ideas, maybe inspires you to try some different things in On1. And thanks for watching, my friends. Take care of yourselves out there. I'll see you in the next video. Have fun editing, and adios.